Hello again. Thank you for joining us for this third panel. We have 10 speakers in 1 hour, 4 from DNS and ICT and SS, and then 6 from the INE. So let's just jump straight to it. Without further ado, let me invite our panelists on screen to introduce their names, agencies, and of course, as usual, what they do at work. First up, we have DSTA.
Hello everyone, I'm Ziqian. I'm from DSTA.
Hello.
Working at DSTA for about 4 years. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science from the University of Michigan in the United States. I double majored in mathematics and computer science in a liberal arts program. After that, I went to Harvard University to do my master's in computational science and engineering before coming back to DSTA. So DSTA is split into 17 program centers, each focusing on a different area. So I work as a software developer in the Cybersecurity Program Center. In my department, I develop customized cybersecurity solution for protecting IT systems. My typical day, I'll usually be coding a new software module or feature. I may have to do research on technical standards. I may be designing and implementing the software, doing a lot of coding in C and C++, or I may be conducting software testing with my team and my users. So I find the work at DSTA to be very challenging and fulfilling. I always get a sense of achievement when my product is completed and my users tell me that they enjoy using my software. Okay, back to you, Gil.
Yes, I can imagine the sense of accomplishment because when your code doesn't work, you get a strong sense of, what is going on? A lot of frustration there, I'm sure. Happy to hear more later. Next up, we have HDX.
Hi, I'm Cecil from HDX, and I'm an engineer. So I've been at HDX for a year, and I graduated a year ago from Imperial College London with my degree in material science and engineering. So currently at HDX, I'm posted to 3 departments, 2 of which are technical divisions: sense making and surveillance, SNS, and data science and AI. So my work at SNS looks at the use of computer vision and video analytics, such as facial recognition and automated number plate recognition to enhance the home team's operational capabilities. So one of the projects that I recently completed was to help ICA in obtaining an electronic monitoring solution for to monitor those people who are on stay-home notice, if you have seen it recently in the news. So this project came about to reduce the manpower required by ICA officers and also to increase the effectiveness in the monitoring as well. So what I like about the project at HTX is that I get to see the fruits of my labor directly impact the operations on the ground. So some of my other work at DSA looks at the use of data analytics, such as visualization and predictive analytics on various home team use cases. And lastly, I'm also posted in plans and strategy division, where unsurprisingly, my work involves strategic planning for the young agency. So things like short and long-term priorities for HTX, and also crafting and developing our vision and mission. And last but not least, also to develop our IT management policy as well, just to list some examples.
I see. Looking forward to hearing more about what strategic planning is. GovTech, on to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Gail.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben from GovTech. I previously did my bachelor's in economics at NYU, New York University, and my master's in public policy at Harvard University. I'm currently working on cybersecurity strategy at GovTech, which means I study cybersecurity threats to the government and create plans to defend the government sector.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. Last but not least, IMDA.
Hi everyone, I'm Thomas from IMDA. I completed my undergraduate degree in Information Systems at Singapore Management University and read my master's in IT at Carnegie Mellon in the US. I've been with IMDA for about 7 years in a variety of portfolios. I'm currently with the strategy division, looking at how we can bring technology research and innovation to the enterprises in Singapore.
I see. Okay, we'll have to dig deeper into what each of you do. So please share, how did you end up in the engineering and IT sector?
Maybe I can start first. So I learned programming in secondary school as part of a school elective. And it's kind of a love at first sight thing. I love the combination of logical and creative thinking in programming. And it gradually became a big part of my life. And in junior college, I did a research internship at DSO. So I did some programming work on underwater sonar. So I wrote a software that calculates how sonar pings can bounce off underwater objects. And I realized that there are many challenging and meaningful engineering problems in the public sector that I can try to solve. So that got me to apply for the DSTA scholarship. And 10 years later, here I am.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I can imagine you in secondary school sitting in front of the computer, spending a lot of time coding. What about the rest of you folks?
I think I'll jump in. I think mine is quite similar to Ziqian. I've been fascinated with IT for a very long time. I remember fondly, I think my first web page was on this platform called Angel Fire, and I think that was back in like 1996. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this, but long before there was WhatsApp and Telegram, there's this chat platform known as IRC, and I think it was the platform. And that was the platform that I was exposed to scripting, and I think that sparked the interest. So I'll say for me, ending up in IT was quite a natural choice.
Very nice. What about Ben Sutu?
Maybe I can jump in?
Yeah.
Thanks. So for me, when I was serving my NS and thinking about what to do as a career, I was fascinated when the government announced that we were building a smart nation and smart city. So this was, I guess 10 years ago. I like the idea of having technologies improving our lives, ranging from using better apps or having sync paths to access government services. But what struck me was how I was concerned whether like cyberspace would be a threat to this vision. So that really interested me in cybersecurity, and that's why I'm doing a lot of work in the cybersecurity sector.
Yes.
I think for myself, it is pretty much similar, except that I didn't start off with coding and all the IT related domains. So for myself, I was also involved in a couple of research projects when I was back in secondary school and also in JC. And I've always been a science student as well. So I think what struck me the most was when I did my H3 research project at NIE. And that project really inspired me and made me realize how much I wanted to go into the engineering and science sector. So yeah, that was how I ended up taking up material science and engineering as my degree in university.
Very nice. And could you share more about the mission of your organization? I'm very intrigued by the naming this HTX. It sounds like SpaceX. Please explain.
Yeah, actually, honestly, SpaceX was something that came up in our discussions a while back when we were naming the agency, but that was not the reason why we came out with it. So what the X actually means is the exponential factor. So HT stands for Home Team, right? And the whole name of the agency is actually Home Team Science and Technology Agency. So why we called it HTX is because we wanted to be the force multiplier for the home team to bring out an exponential effect to the operational capabilities by introducing a plethora of science and tech solutions. Yeah, so actually, coincidentally, when I was speaking about my plans and strategy work, actually one of my work streams actually covers developing the HTX vision and mission, which we are planning to announce in our first year anniversary event at the end of the year. So yeah, like what I mentioned, it was the gist of our mission of our agency is to strive to harness the power of science and tech to enhance the operational capabilities of the home team to keep Singapore safe and secure. Yep.
No, very nice. Boundless, limitless. I love the exponential thing going on. I'm sure the mathematician Ziqian enjoyed that. What did you think?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a similarity between DSTA and HTX.
Yeah.
For us, we are more focused on the military side, the defense side. So DSTA's mission is to similarly harness science and technology and provide engineering support for the defense and national security of Singapore. So as I mentioned earlier, DSTA has 17 program centers. So we cover military equipment such as F-15, submarines, Leopard tanks, and we also handle other things like military bases and IT systems.
I see. That's very fascinating. I'm so curious, and this is for all four of you, how do your public sector jobs compare with the private sector? And I ask this because I'm sure it is very different. I'm sure you know friends in the private sector, and I worked at the UN and the data team, which also was very different. So tell us, what is the difference between doing engineering or data science, etc., in the public sector versus the private sector?
I think I'll start. I think the closest proxy to my role in the private sector would probably be a CTO's office. So we look at improving our current products and also at emerging technologies and what that would mean for business. But I think the big difference is that the CTO's office looks at the bottom line for one company, where here we look at the bottom line for the entire economy. And I think the scale and the complexity of that is just a little bit more challenging. So I think the joy and the burden of the public service is that it allows us to do something that will impact you and your future generations. And I think that's a meaningful challenge.
It's true. Could you share one project that you felt the joy and the burden all at the same time when you were going about work?
Sure. I think this was I'll share a project that I worked on some time ago. I think this was, we were building this thing called the, nationwide sensor network. I'm not sure if Benjamin is also familiar with this. The project, we started off wanting to build something where, the home team as well as LTA and all the other agencies will be able to tap on, such that, things like sensors, water sensors, cameras out in the field can all be connected. So there was one project that I felt was very impactful, but it was also a burden because we were the first ones doing it, and it was really quite tough.
I'm so glad I asked. I didn't know, Thomas, that you were involved with that. But funnily, in between my stint in GovTech and MSF, I spent some time at Smart Nation, and my team then was trying to establish and develop the Smart Nation strategy. And so I understand completely what you say when it's so difficult to be the first. What is a smart nation to each of you in your heads, and what you think it should be? Everyone differs. A lot of people think it's flying buses, but it's true. 100% the burden is there. You want to set the right course of direction for this country we love. What about the others?
I can jump in for a while. I like to tell people that it's very hard to find the same kind of work in the private sector.
Yeah.
So especially for my role, most companies will usually buy their own commercial cybersecurity solution. It's often too expensive to develop their own, cybersecurity software.
So expensive.
Yes, too expensive, and it's due to the unique requirements in defense that DST can customize special software for national security needs, and especially when cybersecurity threats can come from anywhere in the world, and it concerns national security. So our department has to perform at a world-class level, and I find this work to be very challenging and meaningful.
And maybe if I can add to what Thomas and Zhejian has said, I actually had the benefit to spend some time in both the private and public sector. And I think the main difference is that private sector chooses their customers and public sector doesn't. So whereas places like Google, they can build the internet search engine for a certain type class of people of society, so that they can get more money, and the public sector doesn't, right? Whenever there's a citizen need, we have to answer to the citizen need. And I like how Thomas puts it, the joy and burden. The burden is that whenever the need comes, you have to respond. But the joy is that sometimes they're underserved communities that only the government can do something about it. And you have the joy of being in that space to do the impact. So I think that's the main difference for me.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if I could just add into what Benjamin just mentioned. The main difference to me of what I think is the mission, or rather the purpose of your work. So I mean, in the public sector and the private sector, you can find matching. Perhaps you can find some matching roles. In the public sector, your purpose is really to serve the people, whereas in the private sector, it's more profit making. And yeah, that's what I think.
Yes, that's a very important distinction that Ben raised. You cannot pick your clients. We serve all. And so, Ben, and so to continue that, what were your education pathways like?
For me, I graduated from River Valley in 2014, and I took up the PSC Open Scholarship in 2015. So that was before PSC announced the PSC Engineering Scholarship. Yeah, and then I went to Imperial College to do my undergrad in Material Science and Engineering. And the 4 years I spent in London was honestly the most memorable 4 years I've had. Not just because it was in London, but it was mainly because of the plethora of opportunities that I had there. So I think the past 4 years in university made me really want to continue working in the engineering sector. And because the PSC Engineering Scholarship was announced only when I was in second year, so then after that I decided to ask PSC if I could change from the open to engineering. Yeah, so that was what happened, and here I am at HTX.
And maybe if I can add, so thanks for sharing. So myself, I think the path was slightly different. I didn't start off as an engineer. So I work on cybersecurity today, but I do not have an engineering degree. I did my undergrad in economics and politics. I did my master's in public policy. So I'm not technically an engineer. But the beauty of the scholarship is that it was open and such that the scholarship gave me the opportunity to learn about engineering materials even outside of my major. So even during the program, I took things like software programming courses, cybersecurity hacking courses, went to join conferences on cybersecurity and tried out the technical parts of it. So the scholarship gave me the chance to sort of see both worlds. Technically, my major is not engineering, but I got a lot of engineering work in there, and that is really exciting for me.
Yes, yes. Your pathway sounds a bit different from Thomas.
For me, I think I mentioned earlier that IT was like quite clearly my passion, right? So I decided like from the start that I wanted to do IT. So right out of I think secondary school, I went to Ngee Poly and did business IT, and then I applied for the National Infocom Scholarship when I was in NS. I remember at that time I think my family circumstances were less than ideal, so the scholarship was like my golden ticket to a university education. So I did something called the flagship program, where I spent 2 years in Singapore, and then I spent the other 2 years in the US for my graduate studies. I think what was interesting for me was that you have the opportunity to study in both Singapore and overseas. So you make friends from different countries. You sort of get exposed to very different viewpoints, and you follow a different pedagogy. So I think all in all, I must say it was quite an insightful experience, my education journey.
Yes, yes, sounds very exciting. You and Zhi Tian sound similar in that way that you both knew that you wanted to do this. So question to all four of you, how do you think your job could change, especially since engineering technology moves so quickly in the next 20, 30 years? What would you be doing differently at work?
Maybe I can start. Like I said, the field of computer science and cybersecurity, digital space is evolving very rapidly. So over the past 20 years, our society has become more connected over the internet, over social media, and this trend is likely to continue. So as people's lives become more digital, protecting this digital identity is more and more important, especially for the public sector. For my job at the SDA, so I think the fundamental concepts of cybersecurity will stay the same, but techniques for cyber attacks will become more sophisticated.
Yes.
It's a constant arm race between attackers and defenders in the cyberspace. So we have to stay at the top of our game. And in the SDA, there's a strong emphasis in training. So I often get a chance to go for professional courses or conferences to continue to upgrade myself, to keep up to the times.
Yes, I want to emphasize how important this question is because on the day I graduated with my data science degree, my skills were obsolete, by the way. Everything I learned about how CCTV cameras spread out across the city, the data is aggregated and analyzed, that changed immediately in the next year. So I hope that that you remain adaptable and open to going for the courses that Zhi Tian has been talking about. What about the other three?
Maybe if I can build on Zhi Tian's, what Zhi Tian said, I think there are two parts to the job, right? I think there's the content in the job and there's the nature of the job. So I think the content part of the job, as we mentioned, technology changes. I think there's a lot of changes there. But the nature of the job, though, I think wouldn't change much. So fundamentally, I think public service is about listening, synthesizing, decision-making in the best interest of citizens. I think that part wouldn't change. Content will change, but the nature wouldn't change. So that's why I embarked on this career in public service, because that part I think will remain for a long time.
I think I'll build on Zhi Tian's point as well. So I think more broadly speaking, right, I think as Ben also mentioned, job changes are real, especially in the content front. So if you look at about 10, 12 years ago, I think if you think of things even like enterprise computing, back then it was still very limited to local networking, on-premise servers. And then you fast forward to today, you suddenly have cloud across many vendors. You have roles that didn't exist then, like cloud architect. You have engineers in Kubernetes, Ansible, Terraform, to name a few. And I think Gail, you mentioned this agility to keep picking up these skills, and I think that's very important for anyone who's looking for a career in tech.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, if I may add, actually, I think the change part of the technology is actually also something that's really exciting, because you don't get to do the same thing over the next 10, 20 years. And things changes, you have to pick up new skills, you pick up new ways of doing things, and I think that's what makes the job exciting as well. and also like what Gail mentioned, staying adaptable and to the changes that happen. I think that's a really important skill.
Yes. So speaking of being adaptable and having that agility, we have 5 more minutes. So I will give one last question, but also want to hear last words of advice from you folks. The question is, what do you think are important skills besides agility that our applicants should have?
I think if I may add something is being bold, or rather being confident and dare to step out of our own comfort zone to try new things. Because like what I mentioned earlier, my degree was in material science and engineering, but my job is actually completely not related to my degree. And I think that was really a leap of faith that I took. And until today, 1 year later into my job, it has been a very exciting 1 year, learning new things, finding about the different use cases in a home team, and seeing how engineering and science and tech can serve the home team as well. Yeah, so don't be afraid to learn new things and step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, if I will add on, I think there are two skills that come to mind. I think the first one is savviness. The ability to understand nuances in how the world, how society, how people work. I think there's often the difference between what is textbook and what is real and appropriate. So the streetwise savviness, I think, is one. The second is probably a working understanding of world history. I know this sounds a bit strange for people who are pursuing tech, but it is something I wish I did more when I was younger, because I think many of the global issues you see today, both in tech and outside of tech, many of them have historical roots. So I think understanding this perspective of world history sometimes helps you better unpack why certain things are happening, especially when you're in the government. I think a lot of the things we deal with have just that amount of nuance. Yeah.
Well, the other two are thinking, Thomas, you must share one example of how history helped your thinking about a problem, because I 100% agree. And I think our students are wondering, oh no, now what are the kinds of knowledge I need to gather in my brain? So I'll let the other two continue first before I come back to you, okay?
Sure.
Okay, maybe I'll go next. I think that an important attribute for an engineer is to have the sense of curiosity. So you have to be eager to find out why and how things work. And you must be willing to go into the nuts and bolts to find out the details of how a software, a program, a product works. And if you dig deep, you often find that there's a lot of amazing work that previous generation of engineers have thought through and designed and to create the product that you have today. And then after that, it's up to you as a new engineer to make it better.
Yes. Please make it better. Don't break it.
And if I can echo what Zhiqian said, actually Zhiqian stole my line. What I was going to say was curiosity, exactly. So personally, I used to be a music student. So I'm the arts person. I'm now into engineering space, and I see the confluence, right? And you need to be curious to see that these things help each other. So one example that came to my mind was, as a music student, when I was growing up, the CD was 70 minutes, right? And then from a technology standpoint, that was the sort of constraint, right? 70 minutes, because the CD only can take 70 minutes. Well, actually, there was an arts reason behind it. The reason behind it was that the people who designed the CD went to the orchestra, and they said, if you had to record one symphony in one setting, what would it be and how long is that? And that's Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 by the Berlin Philharmonic. And they said 70 minutes is the symphony. And so they said, oh, that informed the design of the CD being 70 minutes. So I think there's a lot of interfaces in these arts and engineering and this space. So remain curious, you never know how it influences each other.
Thomas, back to you on history and the importance of history in engineering.
Yes, I think one of the things that I do today is I look at the technology landscape, and I think many of you would also be familiar with a lot of the things that are happening in the geopolitical space in terms of both between the two big powers, as well as some of these India banning TikTok and things like that. I think a lot of these kind of things have a much deeper undertone to it of why these things are happening and how the trajectory of these things are developing. And I think world history really informs that perspective.
Yes, it really does. It really does. Thank you for sharing, the four of you. I've learned so much. I hope our audience has too. Thank you for the discussion. Let me bid my farewells to the four of you. Thank you. This has been very helpful. Adieu. All right, audience, please stick around because we are jumping straight to the I&E live sharing session, the last but not least group, and there are 6 of them. So I was in very much a hurry to invite the 6 of them on screen to share their experiences with you. Shall we jump straight to it? For first up, we have EMA.
Hello everyone, I'm Echo from Energy Market Authority. I graduated with a direct master's degree in chemical and energy engineering from the University of Leeds. Currently 2 years in my service in EMA. I'm in the Energy Planning and Developments Division, which looks into charting out the long-term policies for EMA and promoting the efficient use of energy. Previously, I was in the Industry Regulation Division, which looks into planning and development of energy infra to keep the lights on and the gas flowing. So happy to share more later, definitely. Back to you, Gail.
Thank you for keeping the lights on. That's very important for our next speaker, HDB. You're up.
Hi everyone, my name is Sharon. I'm from
Hello.
the Housing and Development Board. So I graduated with a master's in mechanical engineering. It's also a direct master's program from Imperial College London. And I've been working at HDB for the past 5.5 years. My first role was in engineering management. So that means that I was studying engineering policy and managing private consultants that work for us and design BTO developments for us. And about 1.5 years ago, I moved to HDB's design arm. So we design some of our developments in-house. So I was part of the team that designed one of the developments that was launched last month. So my typical day right now would involve a lot of discussions with the design team to formulate a design, conceptualize it, and then develop construction drawings. And we also regularly meet with vendors and that are providing technologies that we put into our developments. So happy to share more later.
Yes, thank you, Sharon. Out of curiosity, because I'm sure the audience reads it on the newspapers, what was the development that launched last month?
It is the one at Tengah. So I think it's called Parkville at Tengah, the precinct name.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Excited to hear more. JTC, you're up next.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexis, a mechanical engineer in JTC. My role is quite similar to what Sharon does at HDB, but we do it more for the industrial and now commercial estates as well. My daily focus is to manage the project and also to provide our technical design advice to our consultants. JTC is at the forefront of revolutionizing the built environment industry, aka the construction industry. And this is through integrated digital delivery, which essentially digitalizes what is still a very paper-bound industry. It's extremely satisfying to see our designs come to life from a 3D model and then suddenly grow into a physical building, like what you see behind me, although it's just a concept.
It's great to see.
I'm currently on my 2nd year of the bond, having graduated from Imperial College, studying mechanical engineering, similar to Sharon.
All right, next up, LTA.
Hi, I'm Sean from LTA. I graduated from the University of Birmingham with a master's in railway systems engineering. I've been LTA for 4 years, and my first job, I was actually a rolling stock engineer. And rolling stock basically is a technical term for trains in the railway industry. And it's been a really exciting career thus far. I was privileged to be part of the team that not only designed, but I was also deployed in China to actually build the first 2 trains for the Thomson East Coast Line. And after which, I actually was attached to SMRT and was actually given the opportunity to also drive the trains and manage the stations. So, a wide array of experiences. And also to sort of start up a new team, very much like what HTX is doing something similar in LTA. It's called the TEX team, Technology Enhancement and Transformation Team. And we are basically like a little team of people, tinkering with all sorts of technology and idea. And we are sort of a disrupting force in LTA. So we're not here to, disrupt your train service, but we're looking at how we could do things differently, do things better with a new inventions or new technologies or new processes as well.
Yeah, very exciting. All the X's in these names. NEA, you're next.
Right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael, and I'm with the National Environment Agency for close to about 3 years now. I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering and went on to read a master's in environmental engineering and business management with the Imperial College London. So my role as an engineer in the construction noise control branch of the pollution control division in NEA is to develop and implement programs to manage noise pollution from construction sites in Singapore. My job scope typically consists of a range of duties centered on the regulations of noise from the construction industries. We collaborate across departments within NEA with other government agencies, the construction and building industries, and also academic institutions to review noise standards and guidelines, so as to ensure adequate noise mitigation measures are implemented at these construction sites, and also to analyze and manage public feedbacks related to noise disturbances. That's about it. Over to you, Gil.
All right, thanks for sharing. PUB, we saw a glimpse of you just now. Come back on screen, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Imin from PUB. So about myself, I was from Ngee Ann Poly. I took an engineering course there, so after that I applied and got the new scholarship. From there I went overseas for my undergraduate studies at University College London, and I took civil engineering there, followed by a master's in environmental engineering at Imperial College. So I graduated in 2018, and I've been working with PUB for almost 2 years now. Currently, I'm in a department that's delivering a big project. It's called the Deep Tunnel Storage System. So this Deep Tunnel Storage System, or DTSS for short, it's a huge infrastructure project that's been in the works for over 20 years now. And currently, the DTSS project is in its second phase. So the first phase, it's already done and completed for the eastern part of Singapore. And now for phase 2, it's currently under construction for the western region of Singapore. So for the deep tunnels, we're having these large tunnel boring machines, which are digging deep underground, about 35 to 55 meters. And it's at the same time, we are building the treatment plant that's going to be at the end of these tunnels. And it's going to be located all the way in the west in Tuas. So, yeah. So as an engineer, I'm part of the team that delivers the construction of this big project. And specifically, I focus on the treatment plant at Tuas, which is supposed to be completed in about 5 years from now.
Imin, we'll come back to you and ask you how deep this deep tunnel is. But let me jump straight to the first question, which is that some of you have switched job roles and have had several postings throughout your career. Could you explain what those different jobs postings were? Hello, it's good to see you. All right, so the question remains, how challenging, or tell us more about the challenging and exciting parts of the different postings that any of you 6 speakers have had.
I'll start first. So as I mentioned earlier, I started out doing engineering management. So just to briefly repeat, that means that for actually most of our developments and most of our projects, we engage private consultants to do the design for us. So we have an in-house team that manages these consultants, and that was what I was doing in my first role. So setting policies and managing the consultants. And subsequently, about a year and a half ago, I moved to a team within HDB that designs a select number of our developments. So it was really like a reversal of the roles. I now am the person that I used to manage. So it was, I would say that it was a lot more challenging moving to the design role. I guess previously we were sort of just telling people to do things, and then now it became you have to do it. Yeah. So it's challenging in that sense, but it was definitely a very good learning experience. I think it really gave me a different perspective in terms of policy implementation, what really goes into implementing a policy that we make, an engineering policy that we make. What are the details involved, and how much time goes into doing that. So that was definitely useful to me, and it definitely also accelerated my professional development in terms of picking up skills, because of course you learn a lot quicker by doing. So those are just briefly the challenges that come with switching roles for me.
Yes.
Right, maybe I'll go next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 years in service with NEA, my first 2 years, I was an engineer with the Radiation Protection and Nuclear Science Department. That was more on policy planning and international cooperation. So that role, I organized and attended international and regional conferences, meetings, workshops, as well as training courses. So where I learned about the various nuclear power technologies and capabilities, the applications of radiation and nuclear science in medicine and industry, as well as international nuclear laws governing the peaceful use of nuclear technologies. And with this knowledge and with the team's help, we developed the first national report submitted to international organization and reviewed by 171 member states. We also developed the first national response plan for Singapore. So this is quite remarkable, and in this niche area of radiation and nuclear science, especially in Singapore, where the people, having this knowledge is very little. So this is a wonderful experience that I had. And moving on after that, in my current role, which is about a year, as opposed to my previous was, in this case, is more operational based. So in terms of I have to attend to different types of feedback with the various kind of public demands and as well as expectations, and having to understand the various construction terminologies, where bearing in mind, I shared earlier that my background was in chemical engineering and environmental engineering. So the difficulty here, as well as the takeaway, I must say, is that we should be prepared, or we must be prepared to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn on the go, and on the various aspects required of us from time to time.
Yes, thank you, Michael. That's a perfect segue to our next question about learning, unlearning, and relearning. How do you think your jobs will all change in the next 20 to 30 years?
Right, so Alexis here, if I may share. Yeah, our jobs is going to change, not so much in what we do, but how we do it. So GTC is a huge part in the built environment industry. We're essentially the government developer for industrial estates. So what we do now, we're trying to reform the industry, like I mentioned before, try to digitalize it. So what we do actually also involves building information management, or BIM. So for the poly and uni kids, you guys might have done 3D modeling before, which is similar to that, but in this case for buildings and for entire estates. So it has a lot of details inside there. And the good thing about it is that it also helps to identify clashes, which makes a lot of people's jobs obsolete now, because in the past people would have to manually look at the paper drawings and then figure out where the clashes were, whether or not we have pipes going straight through columns, and that would affect structural integrity, right? Yeah. So so in that aspect, a lot of things would change within the next 20 years, easily within the next 5 years. Yeah.
Imin here. I think one of the interesting things that's very likely to change in 20 to 30 years is the usage of smart technologies. So currently there's a lot of focus on smart tech and innovation. So for example, many of us probably heard that Food Panda can deliver ayam penyet to an offshore vessel using a drone. Yeah. So to put that in a water treatment plant context, we can use autonomous vehicles or drones so that we have lesser physical works, which can be very repetitive. So for example, collecting daily water samples from various locations around the plant. So that can definitely be automated. So in 20 to 30 years time, I think a lot of such smart tech ideas would have come to a more permanent fruition. So it can free up a lot of our time as engineers to do less repetitive and physical work, so that we can focus on higher value work.
Yes, indeed. Let the computers do it. Anyone else wants to jump in?
If I may, Michael here.
Of course.
Yeah, I think writing on to what Imin shared earlier with the use of AI as well as IoT, I believe all jobs will change somewhat. The use of AIs and IoT may somehow make our jobs obsolete, or some others made simple. But I feel that in this environment, especially in this environmental sector that I'm in, to cater to the ever-growing demands and yet to ensure tomorrow's environment is kept intact, has been a much debated topic in recent years. And there is a growing increasing actually awareness among people for the environment and our scarce resources. So environmental management, I feel it's a multidisciplinary subject that continues to push the frontiers of engineering, science, as well as technology to greater heights. And this aiming to control pollution, protect our public health through constant development. And so to me, this discipline, in short, aspires today to inspire tomorrow. That's about it. Over to you, Gil.
Yes, thank you. Wait, could you say that again? It was so nice. I wanted to hear it again.
Aspires today to inspire tomorrow.
I see. Excellent. I'm putting that up in my bedroom. Thank you as I work. Excellent. Switching gears a little bit. Speaking of aspiring and the learning, what were your education pathways like? Please share how you ended up before you got to the workplace.
Well, if I could just share a bit.
Yeah.
My educational pathway was somewhat non-traditional in some sense. So just to go a little bit back, when I was in primary school, I scored a PSLE of 140. So that was terrible. Mum was very disappointed. So I went
Thank
to.
you for sharing.
I went to do a normal technical stream at St. Gabriel Secondary, and then it was then I started to understand the importance of working hard, and then started to sort of be a bit more hardworking, to a bit more studious. And then I went to ITE to do mechanical technology and mechanical engineering. I think it was then I started to enjoy or sort of find my passion, and that was solving problems and building things, right? And started to focus a little bit more about that. And I went to Singapore Polytechnic to continue my engineering studies. And I think I've been very fortunate throughout the entire educational journey that I've always been supported by the government through various scholarships at various stages of my life. Due to the financial situation that my family was in. And when I graduated from my diploma, I did exceptionally well. And I applied for, I think like many of the, students or audiences that are here today trying to find out more about scholarship, I applied for all the engineering scholarship that was available because, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I want to do engineering. And, I think like I saw some of the questions that were posted, some of the agencies or some of the organizations have not gotten back to you. And I think that's normal. It happened to me. I applied for over 20, 30 different organizations and agencies. And I was very thankful LTA got back to me. And I think subsequently later, PSC got back to me as well. And, so don't stop trying for what you want to do. And, with that, after getting a scholarship with LTA, I actually applied for a local university to study at a local university. I think that was the dream always, since I was young, to aspire to go to either NUS or NTU to pursue an engineering degree. But because I didn't have any O levels, at that time before they did a recent change in the admissions requirement, it was really difficult to get a spot in the local university with just your N levels and a diploma. And I think it was that I was very, fortunate in some sense that LTA offered me an overseas scholarship. And then that's where I actually pursued a degree in mechanical engineering in the University of Sydney, after which they extended it to allow me to continue a master's degree in railway systems engineering in the University of Birmingham. But I think more importantly, throughout this journey, at least from my experience, it's never going to be smooth sailing. You're always going to overcome different sets of challenges, pit stops, obstacles. And you really have to ask yourself, what is it that you really want in this life, and what is it that you want to pursue, and just go for it, because failure is always going to happen, but never let failure stop your progress.
Yeah. Sean, thank you for taking the time to unpack your journey for us and to share it with us. I'm sure many people have a lot of questions and are very inspired right now. Did others have stories to share as well?
Okay, I'll go next.
Yes.
Imin here. So for me, I was interested in sustainability and environment. So I enrolled in a course at Ngee Ann Poly called Environmental and Water Technology. And as part of the course in my third year, I had to do like a 6-month internship. And I actually did mine with PUB at a water reclamation plant. So I spent 6 months there working on a mini project that was part of an overall research for many more advanced technologies to be used at a new water treatment plant. So if that sounds familiar, it's because it's where I'm working at now. I'm working at Tuas, water reclamation plant. So in a sense, it has tied full circle because previously when I interned at Poly, it really inspired me. And this experience shaped me to get the scholarship. And then now I'm back working for PUB in the project that inspired me. Yeah.
Oh, wow, nice. You came full circle.
If I may add, similar to Emin, I was also from Ngee Ann Polytechnic, and it was my experience in Ngee Ann Polytechnic that sparked the interest for me to pursue an education in the UK. So I was very thankful for the decision I made back then, because not just it has helped me in my personal development, it has also taught me on how important the importance of independence and of more appreciative of what we actually enjoy back in Singapore. And also during my studies itself, because of the beauty of this scholarship, I actually had the opportunity to visit several power generation facilities, both in UK as well as in China. So this includes like coal and biomass generation, as well as nuclear plants itself. So this is something that is very unique, and we don't actually have this kind of fuel mix in Singapore. So it was during that experience that actually exposed me to one of the key energy challenges that we face in Singapore, which is the energy trilemma that the energy sector faces and EME deals with.
I see. Thank you for sharing. I'm cognizant that we have a few more minutes, 7 more minutes left. And so I want each person to be able to share on advice on scholarships, jobs, college applications, but also there are 2 parts of it, right? One is your education. Was there anything about volunteering or special experiences that you had that you want to share in this last set of advice that you would like to give? But also, what has been challenging or surprising at work? So if you could sort of round up and summarize your last words of wisdom to the audience with us. Anyone can start.
Yeah, so for me itself, I had the opportunity to attend a summer school on economics back in the University of Warwick. And this gave me a greater sense of appreciation of the fundamentals behind the market for an engineering student like myself. And this is actually the beauty of the scholarship as well, for students like us who is interested, but to understand more about what may not be so relevant to our field of study, but is definitely helpful in our understanding of all the key challenges that Singapore faces. Who would have imagined that right now I've been transferred to the Policy and Planning Department, where it's so much more relevant to understanding the broad spectrum of the policies itself and all the key challenges that policymakers have to make. So I would say that is very helpful for me, and this is something that back in as a student myself is not so relevant to the work itself, but it's more of like the interest and the curiosity that I have.
Yes, thank you for sharing.
So if I might share, Alexis here from JTC. When I was doing my poly studies in Singapore Poly, I actually had the opportunity to interact, or rather volunteer at an urban farm in.
Oh, nice.
And it was through that volunteering that I actually really found out about JTC, because the farm needed more roof spaces to develop their farm. So through that experience, right? So what I want to share actually is don't limit yourself. Even if you're a mechanical engineer, it doesn't mean you have to stay only within mechanical engineering. If you broaden your horizon, if you look around and see what there is for you to contribute in, you might always come back full circle as always and back into somebody that can contribute to you and for you to contribute back to society. Yeah.
Yes.
If I may just give some words of advice to some of the fellow applicants for scholarships, I think one of the things that's really important is to be very true and to be yourself during all the upcoming interviews that you might go for. Because I'm very sure, your interviewers, they're very experienced. They have interviewed a wide range of people from all walks of life. So just to share some of my experience, when I was interviewed by LTA, there was a question on whether, why do you choose land transport? And I've had some other participants who came in and said that, it was a dream, and I'm sure some people do like land transport, but I think like many other guys, we all love cars and planes, right? And I was very honest about that. I said I had no love for trains, but, years later, and with a bit of, a bit of cycle on my mind and mentality and understanding more about my impact to society and to the people of Singapore, I can't see, doing anything different than building railway systems and building trains for Singapore or, for any other country, for a matter of fact. So, just be very honest in the interview and be very upfront about what your passions are and what your goals are. And, things will come along.
Indeed, your true self shines through.
Maybe I can give my parting words of advice. I think something that I've learned over the past few years is that probably if you're sort of just graduating from JC or Polytechnic and you have something in your mind that, I feel that I'm good at these subjects, so I should be doing this, like this is probably the best career for me. I would encourage you to not limit yourself and to be willing to try things before you decide what you like or what you don't like. So I would encourage you to sort of take internships, take attachments, even if it does take up some of your time, and be prepared that some of these internships or attachments may prove like unfruitful. You may end up thinking, oh no, this wasn't really what is for me. But I think even the process of discovering what you dislike is helpful in helping you to understand what you do enjoy. So I think one of the things that you may not realize from school is that what you experience as a student is very different from what working in an industry is like. So really expose yourself as much as possible to practical experiences as much as you can. And if you are someone who is not very sure of what you may want to do as a career yet, something that I did and something that has proved useful for me is like to join an organization that has, or to take up a scholarship like the PSC engineering scholarship that gives you a fair number of options. So that in itself gives you opportunities to try and sort of figure out what you are good at and what you enjoy doing. And that's perfectly normal to try things before you really decide.
Yes.
So good luck.
Good luck indeed.
In my humble opinion, maybe I could share that challenges and transitions is inevitable in our life or in our career. So I think I shared about this earlier where, we should practice, or we should have the mentality of learning, unlearning, and relearning. Our career is so long. It's like probably more than how much time we spend in studying. So if I could give a word of advice, it would be, be open to challenges, embrace changes, and live with humility. The scholarship that you're applying for will offer various development opportunities. But most importantly, you must be passionate about the career path that you are choosing and understand the organization as well as the industry that you wish to join. Yeah.
I think I'll just sum everything up. I think the key message I got from everyone was you apply and try your best, because if you don't try, you don't know what further opportunities are out there for you. So just try, and try as many as you can.
Yes, try around, and we hope that you find something that you love, that you grow to love. As Sean said, the more you learn about it, the more you just might fall in love with it. I hate to have to end off this segment, but alas, we are out of time. So let me say thank you to our panel speakers before I give more logistic information. Panel speakers, thank you. This is very short, but really appreciate you giving us a glimpse into your lives and your fields and for your personal stories. Let me bid farewell to you folks by waving a goodbye to all of you folks.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you, panelists. Thank you very much for joining our virtual information session today.